Great morning, friends. This is your boy Dragon, and welcome to another 10-minute Rise Up with Dragon. So I want to welcome everybody. This is kind of my new frequency with this podcast and its purpose. I want to welcome everybody to the playing field of your conscious mind, the playing field of your consciousness. This podcast's intention is to remove the blindfolds from your programmed mind, which we just walk around the world with blindfolds on. It's not our fault, but remove the blindfolds from your programmed mind so that you can gain access and tap into higher levels of this field of consciousness and tap into your true great potential as a result. So we do this how? We do this with our 10-minute, straight to the punch, deep thought podcast format, our weekly blog, which we call the Dragon's Lair, one from the vault, as well as our upcoming online courses and books, meaning more than one. Love and appreciate you all, and welcome, my friends, to another Rise Up with a Dragon.
Great morning, world! Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon!
As a quick reminder, one of the things that we love to talk about here is the idea of just evaluating how most of the shots that we're calling in life are happening because of our inherited, conditioned, programmed mind. And one of the things that we all look and need to do if we want to conquer that would be to learn how to bypass that conditioned, programmed, inherited mind. And one of the easiest ways and most effective ways to do that is through the practice of meditation. So it gives me great pleasure to always remind people that the Rise Up with Dragon show is sponsored by none other than Karma Mind.
Get into the float state with Calm Mind meditations and gear.
All right, let's get into it. Just captain's log, back from a lot of travel, just overcoming and getting through jet lag. And jet lag is an interesting thing. I was looking at jet lag kind of like a seatbelt that I was wearing. Meaning something that I wouldn't say it was happening to me, but jet lag would be an example, like so many, of something that was holding me back from being my best. So I love the idea that I'm on the other side of that, almost as if, the captain just came on and said, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and the seatbelt light has been removed and feel free to move about the cabin. So today is the first time, exercise-wise, program-wise, went for a walk with Chicken this morning, back in structure. I long for structure, that I feel like I'm able to move about the cabin. Very exciting Dragon Thought section of the podcast before we get into today's topic of disillusion. We're top 1% in the world of podcasts right now. So thanks to you for that. So amazing that this has turned into a thing. I do this to practice speaking and, conquer things like anxiety and things like that. That's how this all started. But it's turned into a thing. And a lot of you guys are using the Rise Up with Dragon podcast and these live shows that I do live because it scares me, as part of your morning structure. And, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for that. Your feedback is so valuable. So, if you're watching this live, always chime in. Let us know what you're thinking. Let me know if these things make sense. Questions, all of that stuff. I would love to design this exactly the way you need it to be. So one quick thought this morning before I got into disillusionment is I asked this question. I said, are you part of the damned? Here's an interesting thought. If you are part of the flock and the herd, and I have a tendency of being part of this as well, without my intentions being to follow others. But if you're scrolling social media and things like that, if you're part of that group that is following social media and coming across things, posts and messages that may or may not be portrayed by people that you are enamored by, or, maybe you're not. But if you're coming across things that are not representative of what you think, your unique way of thinking, think about that for a second. Those messages, I'm going to do a whole podcast on this. Those messages that you're coming across very often are making you feel like you're either in or you're out. You're either part of the in crowd or the out crowd. And if you're not part of the in crowd, you're damned. So it's an interesting thing to do, because in the spirit of the interface response system, the first step is to always change the way you look at things. You change your perception. You have to be able to do that so that you can change your response system. But part of that is just to recognize that a lot of the things that people say out there, and I forgive them, for they know not what they do. They're seeking significance and they're trying to be right and things like that. But their message unconsciously is saying, if you're not this, then you're part of the damned. So I don't want to be part of the damned. So the way I handle that is, if I ever come across something and it makes me feel like icky, and it makes me feel like confused or something like that, well, then you know what I do in that moment is I just go, I distance myself from it, and I leave behind, the programming and the inherited part of my brain. And I just recognize that, it's more about what people are feeling and the reason why they're doing it. And it doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not I am or I am not. So I don't want to be part of the damned. So let's get into disillusion. I love this idea. I love the concept of illusion. So here's what it actually means. Disillusion, disappointment resulting from the discovery that something is not good or not as good as one believed it to be. So disillusionment, when you're disillusioned, it's another form of letdown. And letdown is a big, big part of society right now. And what I mean by that is, like, when I'm let down, it's like when I hoped for something or someone to do something, to follow through, and it didn't really pan out. So we're seeing this happen in our world, where people are in the throes of what I consider a reckoning. And they're in the throes of a reckoning in this spirit of disillusionment with the powers that be, the religious right, the political right, the medical. And this ties very much into being part of the damned, politically, medical, and religious. If you're not part of what that message is saying, whether it's, a religious preference or a political preference or vaccinations or something like that, you're made to feel like you're not in the in crowd, right? Or maybe sometimes you align with something and say, I am in the in crowd, but there's a lot of disillusion there. So it's a form of awakening, by the way, in our human race. When we go from unconscious to conscious, when you actually realize that you are experiencing disillusionment, it's actually you becoming conscious of something. So this is really, really interesting to think about, because the idea is, like, who wants to be disillusioned? Right? Who wants to be let down? But if you recognize that you are being let down, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it means that you're becoming conscious of it. The worst thing would be to be experiencing letdown and not actually knowing that you are, because you're just kind of blindly following others, because that's the safe way to do it. The other day, I was just recognizing that as well, that following others, even if they're not moving in the same direction that you desire, it's a lot easier than taking a lead. I was talking to Chicken on our walk this morning, and one of the things that we like to do with our clients, they start off with a physical change, and then they move into all the other mental and financial freedom components. But what we're really looking to do is empower people to become leaders. That is a challenge. So when you feel the feels of disillusionment, you are moving, like I said, when you feel them, and it sucks, you're moving from unconscious to conscious, and it can often feel upsetting and too much to handle. What an interesting thing to think about. Who wants to feel unsettled and feel overwhelmed and too much to handle? That's why a lot of us like to sleepwalk through life. And that's why I said before, it's easier. It's easier to not know. But when you do know, very often you're greeted with a shitty feeling like disillusionment or letdown. So that's why people shut their minds off and just blindly follow other people that are just saying, a lot of times saying stupid things. But if you agree with them, because the majority of the people you hang out with are following them, well, it's a lot easier than you saying, no, that sounds crazy, because you might feel rejected or you might be taking a risk at something like that. So I just love the idea of recognizing that a bad feeling is not necessarily a bad thing. Right? It means you're waking up. So a small example of this, I don't know how many people out there are like this. Yeah, that's right. Katya says it's the worst feeling. How about this for the worst feeling? How about when you wake up from an afternoon nap on the couch? Anybody hate that? Oof, that for me, I hate that. That sucks. Just that idea of all of a sudden waking up and just not being able to handle things. But that's because you're going from unconscious to conscious. That's why I use that as an example. It's not a bad thing to feel bad, right? Because you're feeling. I think the worst thing that you could do is not feel and numbing yourself. That's why a lot of human beings will revert to escaping with alcohol, drugs, or being mean and putting other people down. It's just their way of coping with not wanting to address their own truth. And I get it. I've done that too. I've done all that stuff. So nonetheless, now we're awake. And that's what I wanted you to know, and aware of disillusionment. So where do we go from here? Well, think about it, because it's our natural, programmed, inherited thing to move away from those icky feelings. So, it appears that humans have a tendency to not want to stay in that newly awakened and disappointed state of disillusion, of letdown. So what we do, and I'm offering this to you so you can catch yourself drifting, is they choose a side of the disillusion. Right? They choose a side of politics. They choose a side of religion and a side of healthcare. That's just the same thing as alleviating your stress by doing drugs or alcohol. You pick a side because you figure, if I pick a side, it's kind of like being in jail and just picking like a gang to be part of. It's just it's the path of least resistance, right? But remember, the path of most resistance is where growth takes place. But they choose a side of one of those things, completely unaware when we choose a side. And I want to offer you this as a challenge, to be careful to choose a side. Do you have to choose a side? Well, and if you think you do, you do, but careful with that. Completely unaware when you choose a side, that once again, you've gone to sleep and gone into another form of autopilot mode, again, forgetting, listen to this, it's the closed-minded human. Are you closed-minded? Think about this. It's the closed-minded human that becomes the prisoner to potential. Let me say that again. Write that down. It is the closed-minded human that becomes prisoner to their potential. And what I mean by that is they become closed. And as soon as you're closed rather than open, and you don't listen to anything else but what you're thinking because you've chosen a side, you are a prisoner in your own mind, right? Think about that. So unaware that they are now once again controlled by an agenda that was created by something or someone else. That's a lot of control to hand over to others. Your life's future and your destiny to hand it over to other people, including me. If you're watching and listening to the Rise Up a Dragon and you're buying into what I'm saying and you're going, that makes sense, that's fine. But use it kind of just as an ingredient that you're going to use in your overall cake that you're trying to make. Don't buy into everything that I say. Question everything. You don't have to pick a side. So that's a lot of control to hand over to another. So the leader of a movement you choose, right? The leader of the movement becomes the shot caller in your prison. Think about that. If you've bought into someone and they're like, yeah, I follow this person, I read all their books and I love their posts, and you say amen to everything that they say, which sometimes is crazy what these people say, but you do it to pick a side, right? To get away from the disillusionment or that confusion. They become the shot caller in your prison. And I don't know if you know what a shot caller is, but a shot caller is somebody that whatever they say goes. So only to wake up again from one of those long couch naps in that delusion state to see it again and say, oh shit, it happened again. So what's the solution? I believe the solution is to let go of needing to have a solution. a place of neither here nor there, right? And this is a Buddhist thing. Do we have to have a solution? Let go of the need to pick a side of being right. Think about that. Look at all the posts out there of people saying, I'm right, but they don't understand that when they say I'm right, they're saying you're wrong. You're part of the damned, right? So in social media, you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. But you can have an opinion. Here's something to think about. You can have an opinion. There's nothing wrong with having an opinion that seems to suit you, but never close your mind to the other points of view. I have struggled the most in life when I think I'm right and I close my mind off to other things. That's why I struggled 80 pounds overweight for so long, because I said, I won't do that. I only do this. But it wasn't until I opened my mind to saying, well, what else is there out there? And what else could I try that works? And then boom, that's where growth takes place out of the comfort zone. We know that. You hear that all the time. So be open to other points of view. And if you're not, you have been conditioned to do that. If you hear someone say something and you get angry at them and you say, you are wrong, I am right, somebody else taught you to do that, not you, because it's the open-minded person that refrains from being in that prison. So I've learned to stay in the space between the polar sides of this disillusionment, right? Me being right or wrong, my future and my past, right? I just stay in between and I just get curious and compassionate. And I'm saying, hey, listen, whatever works. Right now, I think I know what's working. But if you approach me today and you say, hey, here's what I'm doing, I'm going to listen. Whether it's a business opportunity, whether it's a way of getting healthy, whether it's a book that you're reading that you're making a breakthrough, why would I say no to that? The only reason is I'm afraid of being wrong, right? So as an observer, watch the show. That's what I like to do. So part of my interface response system, which is going to be the most delicious slice of pizza in my book for you, part of the system is to evaluate my perception first and my response to things and not pick a side. I don't have to pick a side. Just to observe and evaluate what I'm thinking. And also, if I see that you're thinking something, rather than taking offense to it, I wonder why you're thinking it as well. Just to be curious and compassionate on both of those sides. So, or in between them. I can go with a side if I choose, that's the opinion, if it supports at the time, if I think it supports where I want to go, but not pick it and stick it. That's the difference. I can go with something, but not pick it and stick it. And this is just an open-minded approach to living life. So that's how you slam the door. When you pick it and stick it, you slam the cell door shut, and then you become susceptible to the shot caller that gave you that idea. Is there a shot caller in your life? And have you allowed that person to become a shot caller in your life? Get rid of that. So I use this system to make sure that I stay on track and move forward with, and as I say, unfuckwithable nature. I love to work on myself physically, mentally, financially. I like to work on myself so that I'm indistractable and unfuckwithable. But my personal opinion doesn't serve me as soon as I make something, as soon as I give my personal opinion, it doesn't suit me because then it makes it personal. Think about that. As soon as you give your personal opinion on something, it makes it personal. When I make something personal, it is the very reason I fall off track and back into this unconscious sleep state of disillusionment. Just grab that. Are you catching my drift? Are you catching yourself in a drift? Well, I invite you to stop giving such a shit and take a nap in the space between chaos with me, in the space of disillusionment. Love and appreciate you all. I hope that this landed for some of you. And if it didn't, that's okay too, right? But love and appreciate you all. Have an amazing day. And this is Dragon signing out.